Welcome back to the Many Toys of, the show in which we go over the action figure history of various Transformers characters. And this time around, in order to celebrate 12,000 subscribers, it's time to not talk about a character, but an entire universe, with the Many Toys of Shattered Glass. Before we begin, a big thank you to Bloodstreak 2001, Delinquent, Foofy Head Freak, SH5UV, Alex1690, Omar ZX, Morphing Grid 101, Sand Xmation Studios, Jeff Rhyme, Public Profile Name 4273, Burger, Space Case 1214, Spooky SPT, Violent Witchy, Isaac Ali U1C, Brendan S. Guerrera 8488, Awesome Kamen Rider, Pooltastic, Madmind 7, Prime 9908, Pocketman 97, and of course, an especially big thank you to Chris Cox 9718, who has apparently been asking for this episode for centuries, Max MC55, who has been waiting for Shattered Glass for so long that he did his own video, and of course, to all of you who engaged in my 12,000 subscriber poll and put up Shattered Glass as what you wanted to see. For anyone who may not know, Shattered Glass was perhaps the single most enduring creation of FUM publications and the BotCon conventions. Shattered Glass is a continuity in which the evil Autobots are fought back by the heroic Decepticons. And even though that sounds nice and simple, it's a lot deeper than you might think, at least the initial stories were. It wasn't just as simple as Opposite World, you got to see familiar characters just with a different deck of cards, a new lease on life. Megatron was still identifiable as the former Gladiator, Optimus was still an archivist with an interest in the past, they just had a change in outlook and priorities. But unfortunately, as time went on, it became a lot more about filling out the numbers. There were many characters created just because there was an easy repaint, or because, why not, we need a group shot. I will do my best to cover every single toy to ever be attributed to Shattered Glass, but you should know the vast majority of these are just repurposed from other toy lines, not meant to be a Shattered Glass character, just turned into one years later. Alongside that, I want to make it clear, I'm not going to go terribly in-depth on any one character or any one toy. That would be much more suited for their standard character videos. And by the way, if you would like to learn more about these characters, I'm going to put a thumbnail up for every character I've already given an episode of the Many Toys of. That way you can go and check out those videos in order to learn more. On top of that, I'm doing my best to separate these toys out depending on how they were released. So we're going to do all of the BotCon original characters, then the repurposings, and then we're going to finish off with not only third-party characters, but also Shattered Glass toys that don't belong to G1. Now, this is only the second time I've ever covered a full toy line, or in this case, a full continuity of toys. And as a result, we're going to change it up just a bit. We're going to sort the characters based on when they were introduced in fiction, and if they had toys specifically made for them. Which means that we are starting with all the BotCon figures that were first released at BotCon 2008. And I think it's only fitting to begin with the leader of the heroic Decepticons, Megatron. Here, Megatron was still a gladiator, but unlike in most continuities, he never allowed a lust for power to take him over. He was always an honorable idealist, and unfortunately was quickly outwitted by a much more clever and much more deceptive Optimus Prime. Here, the term Decepticons actually refers to the fact that they were the first to learn how to transform. Their deception wasn't in their intentions, just in the fact that they learned to adapt and to change. Megatron's toy is a repaint of the original Energon Megatron, and even though it looks similar at first, I actually prefer this look for Megatron. In Energon, he was just a bit too colorful, especially with the blues and greens. Here, with the gray, black, and orange, it is a solid, heroic, noble color scheme. I especially love the black head. It certainly brings Marvel Megatron to mind, and helps make him feel different while still similar to most other Megs. Megatron's second official toy would have come out in 2021 as part of the Shattered Glass collection. This was a redeco of Siege Megatron, given many new pieces and accessories in order to invoke his space cruiser. Even though the vehicle mode is very rough, and it is very, very rough, the robot mode looks solid. The mold is always going to have problems, but at the very least this color scheme helps bring some new personality to it. Don't even get me started on the Blockies Megatron that came out in 2025. He is absolutely adorable. I would love to see him in proper Galaxy version, but this Defender Megs is definitely a cute little dude. I also just need to point out that no third-party company loves Shattered Glass as much as New Age. Almost every mold that has an SG character attached to it, they've made the remold and repaint available, and Megatron is no exception, being a remold of their Galvatron, and he looks amazing. Since we covered Megatron, it only makes sense to cover Optimus next. Here in Shattered Glass, Optimus Prime is a cruel leader, an information broker, someone who has gathered all of the collective wisdom and data throughout Cybertron's history and consolidated into his own singular archive. He controls what people know, he controls what people can see. He uses his knowledge of the archives in order to bolster his own knowledge base. He uses that information to hold everyone else down. And he sees Megatron as just a peon, someone far dumber, far less able to handle the information that Optimus so covets. His original toy was a repaint of the Classics Optimus. And Classics Optimus is such a great feeling figure for this. There was already such an anger in the head sculpt, such an intensity that wouldn't be in most other Optimus Primes, and it allowed Shattered Glass Optimus to use that anger and make it one of his key identifying features. I'm not saying that Classics Optimus felt evil, he just felt serious. But giving him this color scheme, the cracked windshield, that is what truly made this one of the best Shattered Glass toys you could possibly get, not just in 2008, but even to this very day. Going into 2012, though, we see that this Optimus doesn't stick to the Classics mold. He would even make use of the Deluxe G2 Optimus put out by Reveal the Shield. Definitely a funky boy, but well articulated, with one of the most interesting conversions you'll find in a Deluxe Transformer. Even though this guy doesn't have quite the same intimidation factor as the other Prime, it is still a worthwhile get. In 2015, FunPub would give us one final take on SG Optimus with their Nova Prime. In the Shattered Glass universe, the benevolent god Unicron restored the evil Optimus into the heroic Nova Prime, and it was Nova working alongside Galvatron, Gaia, and Unicron that were finally able to stop the evil Primus and his horrendous Autobot forces. I will admit, it's a stretch. I think they just wanted to do Nova Prime and also find a way to work Shattered Glass into it. It's a good toy, but I don't know, man. It doesn't even feel like Shattered Glass anymore. Here is something I just noticed, though. Megatron is gray and black and became the purple Galvatron. The purple Optimus became white and black. I don't think that was intentional, but it is kind of a funny reverse. Now, up until this point, there wasn't really a single image as to what a Shattered Glass Optimus could look like, but come IDW 2.0, we would see a Shattered Glass Optimus that was just rocking the usual G1 Optimus body. This has become his standard look in almost every form of fiction, and the first toy we'd get of it was in 2016, where the MP10 was repainted into Shattered Glass Optimus. It's a good looking toy, but truth be told, I just don't think that the G1 look has ever worked for Shattered Glass Optimus. G1 Optimus is just too friend-shaped. He's too smoothed out. Unless you really go to town on the head sculpt, which they very rarely do, I just don't see the same menace that was in that original Classics Optimus. As if to illustrate my point, check out the Flame Toys for I model SG Optimus. Because they took their own super anime-esque design of Optimus and turned it into the Shattered Glass, I can see a lot of that anger and intensity again. It's not that I dislike the Shattered Glass deco, it's just I don't think it can work for every single Prime. In 2020, Earthrise Optimus would be repainted into a Shatterglass Optimus. He looks solid, though again, I do wish they had changed up the head. Super Cyborg Optimus is interesting, but I don't know, I think the blue is just a bit too bright. It looks more just like an off-color Optimus than it does Shatterglass Optimus. 2023 would be a massive year for Shatterglass Optimus. You get the Kindergarten series guy, which is adorable. You get the Moshibot guy, which was adorable. And then you got the MDLX guy, which, well, I mean, he's not adorable, but he is very cool. But that's okay. Blocky's Galaxy version Shatterglass Optimus was adorable. So many cute primes this year. Come 2025, we'd get 2 more Blocky's Shatterglass Optimus primes. One would be the Defender Robot mode, and the other would be the Defender Truck mode. There's also the MPG Shatterglass Optimus that's still just over the horizon. Yeah, you better believe that third party loves themselves a Shatterglass Optimus. Just to make this explicitly clear, we're only going to be talking about the G1 versions right now. We'll talk about all the other ones that were made by third party later on in the video. But in terms of getting a G1 styled Prime in the Shatterglass colors, you can get the Transform Element, you can get the S&D, you can get the Magic Square Masterpiece. You could also get their smaller Legend Scale Optimus in the Shatterglass colors. DX9 did Dutch their Legends Optimus in Shatterglass colors. And of course, you better believe that New Age has put more than a couple of SG Optimuses out on the market. Aside from Optimus, I would argue that the most popular Shatterglass character would be Starscream. And here we can see what Starscream could be like if he wasn't bogged down by his own short-sightedness or ego. He is a terrific warrior, a capable leader that has the respect of any Decepticon around him, and a more than capable scientist. The only difference is this Starscream doesn't have any lust for power. He is, instead, Megatron's most loyal lieutenant, to the point where when it looked as though Megatron had been executed by Cyclonus, Starscream openly cried for his king. Even in the IDW 2.0 Shatterglass, we see a Starscream that's more of a gentleman adventurer and a true heroic warrior than the usual sniveling, sneaky Starscream. It's interesting to think that there is a world out there where a Starscream could have all of these attributes and use them for evil, but it's only when he's good and isn't bogged down by his own insecurities that they can truly manifest in a truly impressive Decepticon. His original toy is actually a repaint of another Starscream, that being the Cybertron guy. This is already one of the best designed Starscreams ever had, but by putting it in G1 Jetfire colors, it is so gorgeous. One of the best repaints of all time, and because the red and white are so striking, you can honestly forget that it's Cybertron Starscream. The deco does so much to completely revitalize this character. Starscream's second toy would come in 2017 and was a repaint of the Ghost Starscream from Unite Warriors Grand Galvatron. Truth be told, it's not a great toy. It was more or less just an excuse to have another combiner limb. A toy that's somewhere in the middle came out in 2021, that being the Shatterglass Collection Starscream. A repaint of Siege Starscream. This guy has great articulation, a good transformation, and a decent Tetrajet, but he just doesn't have the same bulk. I think this design is good, but nowhere near as iconic as the original. As always, New Age has covered the Shatterglass Starscream, and he looks good. It's also the first time we've ever seen a proper G1 Starscream in these colors, and it works. It only makes sense in a world where there is a loyal Starscream, there would be a treacherous Goldbug. Foregoing the name Bumblebee, Goldbug was rebuilt to be a truly powerful warrior, and he despises Optimus Prime. Even though he does his best to put on a cold front, he is riddled with insecurities, convinced that he's too small, too weak, too dumb, which is also why he's so clever with his schemes. Eventually, he is able to take power from Optimus, but not for very long. In the original 2008 lineup, Shatterglass Goldbug used this Cybertron hotshot mold, and it was perfect, especially with that new head. I love the black and yellow here, actually making it similar to the Movieverse Bumblebee, just with inverted colors. And the Goldbug head on top sealed the deal on making this one of the best uses of one of the best molds Cybertron ever produced. I'm not too big on the 2021 version though. It's just another Earthrise Cliffjumper remold. I think they missed the point. It's supposed to show a Bumblebee that has made himself look more like the movieverse Bumblebee, foregoing the cutesy Beetle and rebuilding himself to be a muscle car to try to invoke intimidation out of others. Here, it's just a usual stubby Bumblebee with a kind of dumb-looking head. Of course, what's a Bumblebee without a Cliffjumper? But technically, there are two different Cliffjumpers that should be on a proper Shatterglass shelf. One of them is the Classics Cliffjumper, as the Shatterglass story actually follows a displaced Classics first Cliffjumper. It's actually kind of cool to see Cliffjumper be given such a prominent role back in 2008, and more importantly, he's a hope bringer. He's the one who's able to finally allow the Decepticons to get major victories against the Autobots, and he becomes a treasured lieutenant to Megatron, and even a best friend to Starscream. I love seeing my boy living his best life, even if these aren't quite the characters he remembers. It's nice to see that he can thrive in any universe. And as I said, the only Cliffjumper that can actually do this role is that original Classics Cliff. That's the Cliffjumper in the comic. That said, let's say you want the Cliffjumper that's actually from the Shatterglass universe. Well, you would need a blue Cliffjumper. The issue is it's actually kind of hard to find a blue Cliffjumper, and in fact the only one you can get would be the Iron Factory Shatterglass Cliff. Shatterglass Cliff never had that body type. One of the funnier characters in Shatterglass is Grimlock. Even though he was initially just the attack dog of Optimus Prime, some scraplets actually fixed his brain, to the point that when he is in proper robot mode, he's a genius. The problem is that when he gets angry, he becomes the dinosaur, and the dinosaur is stupid. Whenever he becomes the dino mode, it's hard for him to actually properly transform back. The original toy for this Grimlock was once again put out in 2008 using the Classics Grimlock mold, and it looks so good. Trypticon colors work great for a Grimlock, to the point where I actually prefer a Grimlock using this deco than basically any G1 Grimlock. In 2014, you'd be able to get a loyal subject of Shatterglass Grimlock, and then in 2023, the Studio Series 86 Leader Class Grimlock would get the Shatterglass treatment, and he looks great. Not quite as good as the Classics, but still wonderful. New Age has also done a Grimlock, and in all honesty, they did a better job at capturing this design than even Hasbro did. Okay, follow me here with Sideswipe, because he's incredibly important. Without him, there is no Shatterglass. I don't mean the fiction, I mean the entire concept was birthed from them wanting to make this toy. At first, the plan was for the Universe 2003 line to repaint Armada Wheeljack into Drench, a random G2 character. When the Universe 2003 died, though, you had a number of the BotCon employees who really enjoyed the new deco, and they wanted to tweak it. They turned it into a Decepticon Sideswipe. And from there, they eventually turn it into Shattered Glass Sideswipe. Without this Sideswipe, there is no Shattered Glass story because there would never be a reason to write a story like that for the BotCon convention. And it helps that the toy's great. Armada Wheeljack has limited articulation, but his proportions are solid, and the deco is just to die for. In 2024, you'd be able to get a Blocky's Defender Shattered Glass Sideswipe, before finally in 2025, Seed's Sideswipe would be repainted into the Shattered Glass colors, and it works. It works so well. Talking like a generic gangster and putting on a goatee, Shattered Glass Rodimus is the leader of the Wreckers. And he's interesting. He definitely thinks he's a lot smarter than he actually is, but he's powerful enough and has enough connections to actually matter, which is why Goldbug was so quick to try to buddy up to him and his elite team. Hell, in this universe, Shattered Glass Rodimus was even the one to shove Optimus out of the shuttle when they were escaping from Decepticon City on Earth. His original toy was a repaint of the Classics Rodimus, and what can I say, it's good and striking, black with purple flames, you don't need much more than that. You'd be able to get the Creo in 2014, a few years later you got the Power of the Primes Rodimus Unicronus that even though it's technically not Shattered Glass Rodimus, it basically is, so we should count it. And then we would get an official new Shattered Glass Rodimus in 2023. This is just a repaint of the Studio Series 86 Hot Rod, but come on. A great color scheme for a great mold. Hell, there's even a 3-0 Shattered Glass Rodimus, and even though it doesn't transform, it does look pretty goddamn spectacular. Hell, he's even had some good third-party love. DX9 repainted their masterpiece Rodimus into Shattered Glass. Shattered Glass Jazz is kind of fascinating in that you don't really need a new version. The whole point of taking the Cybertron Crosswise and repainting it into Jazz was because there wasn't a Generations Jazz at the time, and it looked spectacular. So yes, of course, it is Shattered Glass Jazz, he speaks like Mr. T, but moreover, it was a way for fans to finally have a proper redone Jazz at long last. I guess that means that technically any G1 Jazz can be Shattered Glass Jazz, but it also means that there will probably never be an official Shattered Glass Jazz ever again, because why would there be? Not to spend too long on them, but in 2008 you'd also be able to get Razor Claw, Dive Bomb, and Rampage. These three are all just repaints of animal Minicons. And even though I think it's funny that the Predacons that used to form the massive Predaking are now all such tiny, tiny little animals, there's not exactly much to go into here, in terms of toys or character. That is not a problem for Shattered Glass Blurr, though. Blurr here is actually incredibly intelligent, coveting all the information that Optimus has tried to lock away. That eye patch he wears is actually because he saw too much, and Optimus tried to make sure he wouldn't be seeing too much ever again. His original toy was a remold of the original Armada Blurr, which is insane because this toy has been Blurr 3 times, each time a different Blurr, and yet they're all unique in their own way. There was also the 2021 Shattered Glass Collection Blurr, which is alright. It's not using the best mold, but hey, it is a Blurr. So here's a funny thing. As we get deeper into this video, I'm going to make jokes about how eventually all the Shattered Glass figures start to feel more and more and more like excuses just to have repaints. The reason I think that's funny is because even as early as 2008, there was just a random repaint to fill out the box set. You could have gotten the Timelines Ricochet. It's just Shattered Glass Jazz in the burgundy. It looks good, I like it, but truth be told, there's a part of me that thinks nowadays this just would be Shattered Glass Jazz. The final toy in the original bunch to talk about actually would have been Nightbeat, who was a remold of Energon Hotshot. A great looking toy. But Nightbeat's never done much in the fiction, which is probably why this is one of the more forgettable entries, especially out of the early years. Spiraling into 2009, you'd be able to get Field Marshal Thunderclash. Thunderclash here was one of the toys you could make at the customization class at BotCon 2009. He doesn't have any fiction to his name, but he is there. The far more important character to get a toy would have been Heatwave. Heatwave was introduced initially as a joke. Him and Demolishor came on board the Nemesis, and Cliffjumper said something to the effect of, "I never saw Decepticons like you where I came from." Demolishor was there kind of just as a gag. Meanwhile, Heatwave actually shouldn't have been there. He was one of the components of Nexus Prime. He was a gentle soul, someone who could actually read the minds of other machines. And that meant that if you, say, broke a phone or destroyed a computer, he knew the personality of that machine. It made him almost similar to Beachcomber in a certain way. And it was also a big reason as to why, when Nexus Prime finally formed, he was a good guy. It was Heatwave's morality that won out between all of the screaming voices that were making up one of the original 13 Primes. Heatwave's original toy was a remold of the Energon Barricade. And even though I think these colors are garish, I like the character to the point that I look past it. Interestingly enough, Heatwave would get a second toy in 2014 as a Hero Masher. Even though this character is described as being like the Rescue Bots Heatwave, in design, he's very clearly the Shattered Glass guy. It's weird to think about, but if you need a Heatwave on your shelf, this is going to be the cheaper way to get him. Much like the year before, there'd only be 2 characters to get new toys in 2010. One of them was Shattered Glass Ravage. Shattered Glass Ravage is supposed to be a way for a bunch of 40-year-old men to make memes. He uses a lot of internet talk, and even though I think he can be cute in the right circumstances, it feels a lot like a low-rent Deadpool. Good design, though. Now, the first toy to come out bearing the name Shattered Glass Ravage would have been in the Timelines Double Punch and Turbo Master 2-pack. Come 2022, you'd also be able to get the Siege Ravage, given the white and blue. Man, this toy already looked scrawny before. The white is not helping in that department. Real talk, the Aldi Ravage that came out in 2025, wonderful. I love how this guy looks. That said, I did tell you that 2010 was the first time a toy was actually named Shatterglass Ravage. That's because a bunch of toys have been repurposed as Shatterglass Ravage. For one, Kiss Player's Glit is now a Shatterglass Ravage. Trust me, it gets weirder. The BotCon Tigatron that was a repaint of the Metals Ravage is also a future Shatterglass Ravage, and he would eventually turn into Tigerhawk. But just to make it even weirder, the proper Metals Ravage is also a future Shatterglass Ravage that will eventually turn into Razorclaw. In terms of a third-party Shatterglass Ravage, you could get the Ocular Max version, which looks absolutely stunning. Jesus Christ, compared to all that, Cyclonus is easy. He's just dishonest now. Whereas Starscream is now the loyal second-in-command, Cyclonus is the one to actually pull the trigger and kill Megatron. And his toy is just a red and orange repaint of Universe Cyclonus, which is great because Cyclonus now has Rodimus colors, and he wears them well. Surprise, surprise, New Age has done a Shatterglass Cyclonus. Some pretty big things happened in 2011. For one, as I said before, Cyclonus executed Megatron, but Nexus Prime was able to restore him as Galvatron, which resulted in one of my favorite Shatterglass toys of all time, taking the Cybertron evac and making it Galvatron. It works. It works incredibly well. The colors are just wonderful, and the actual helicopter mode and transformation are without question. This is one of the best toys in all of Transformers history, and I think this is the best version of it. I love the idea that the usually insane Galvatron is turning into a rescue helicopter. There's some beautiful storytelling in there, and really shows just how different the heroic Megatron and the usual Megatron are at their core. There was also the Action Master Thundercracker, which was a repaint of classic Starscream. And do not get me wrong, I love this toy. It absolutely should have happened, and I'm happy that it did. With all that said, this was also the first time where it felt like they were just throwing shattered glass onto something to try to excuse the repaint. You didn't even have to do it here. People wanted Action Master Thundercracker. Have you checked his eBay prices? If you're like me and you want a Shatterglass Thundercracker without taking out a second mortgage, you can always get the New Age Shazam. Thank you, New Age. 2012 would see a ton of new Shatterglass toys, with perhaps the most important one being Shatterglass Soundwave. In the Shatterglass universe, Soundwave was a true free spirit, someone who adored music and wanted everyone to be on good terms, so much so that eventually in IDW 2.0, he was outright Megatron's therapist. He became the main hero of the second iteration of Shatterglass, and is a constant fan favorite, not just because of his design, but because, just like Shatterglass Starscream, it's amazing to see the usually stoic and cynical Soundwave turn into this. A good dude with a good heart. That said, the toy's not great. It is a retool of the Universe Ironhide, which is one of the more disappointing toys from Universe. It looks good color-wise, but in terms of articulation and transformation and vehicle mode and accessories and basically everything that isn't just standing still, it just isn't quite up to snuff. In 2013, you'd be able to get the Shatterglass Soundwave Blaster 2-pack that would give a repaint of the G1 Soundwave. And look at that! They remembered his bandana! Hell yeah! In 2022, you'd be able to get the Shatterglass Collection Soundwave that would also give you Ravage and Laserbeak. I'm liking this. Great mold, and more importantly, they remembered the headband. Real talk, I think the best Shatterglass Soundwave is the Aldi one. Not only is it an amazing non-transforming figure, but you better believe they got the bandana, and they also got you Ravage and Laserbeak again, baby! There was also a repurposed Soundwave, that being the music label Soundwave from 2007. This was not meant to be Shatterglass Soundwave, but it being white and blue, and more importantly, this being how Soundwave looked in the very first issue of the Shatterglass comic, means that, retroactively, this is a Shatterglass Soundwave. Surprise, surprise, surprise. New Age has done a Shatterglass Soundwave that actually came with a Ravage a laser beak that's not quite the right color, and also our only Shatterglass Frenzy to date. That's a really good package, and one of the better Soundwaves you could possibly put on a Shatterglass shelf. Just like Soundwave, Ultra Magnus had actually been there since the first issue, but was only now getting a new toy in 2012. That said, the way we first saw him was by Optimus Prime ripping his face off. It's because Ultra Magnus was the treacherous younger brother of Optimus. Whereas Optimus wanted to be the absolute authority of the universe, to use his immense power to be the absolute dictator, Ultra Magnus wanted chaos. His store-brand Rick and Morty ass-watching nihilism is what led to him wanting to destroy all of creation, and eventually force the Shatterglass universe and the Classics universe to fall in on themselves. It wasn't the most well-thought-out plan, but I guess it kinda worked? ? Look, his original toy was a repaint to the revealed the Shield Optimus Prime, kinda like how the second Shatterglass Optimus was, and this one is fine. Using the Delta Magnus colors are interesting, but the real saving grace is that head sculpt. It's so gnarly and disgusting, I dig it. In 2022, there was the Shattered Glass Collection Magnus that was a remold of the Kingdom Ultra Magnus, and again, gnarly head sculpt is absolutely why you'd buy this figure. Come 2025, you'd even be able to get a blocky Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus in their Shining version Wave 3. That said, don't get me wrong, I kind of prefer this as Delta Magnus, but I wish that the skull face was an option. It feels iconic to this character. In terms of repurposed toys, the Universe 2003 Ultra Magnus, which was a redeco of the deluxe Armada Optimus Prime, eventually was revealed to be what Ultra Magnus looked like before he had the face ripped off. If you're looking third party for a Shatterglass Ultra Magnus, you could get the X-Transbots Magnus for a masterpiece flavor, or go for the Iron Factory if you want a Legends Shatterglass Magnus. In a strange move, Treadshot became one of the major players of Shatterglass, being the arch enemy of Ultra Magnus. The reason I say that's weird is because Treadshot was a nobody, just a random action master in G1. This was definitely one of the times in which they had the toy before they had the identity. Because BotCon had been told that they could use the Reveal the Shield Jazz mold before Reveal the Shield Jazz came out. They very quickly made a cool deco and slapped a name on it. Meanwhile, Shatterglass Trax would actually help reinforce a new standard going forward. Just like Delta Magnus becoming Shatterglass Ultra Magnus, Road Rage, which was itself the Transformers identity for Diaclone Trax, was now going to be Shatterglass Trax. Not only does that mean that you could finally have a Road Rage on your shelf, but it also meant that many creators now realized that the Diaclone colors could be turned into Shatterglass identities. Of course, the fact that Road Rage and Shatterglass Trax share a design means that any Road Rage can double as a Shatterglass Trax, which means that you could get the eHobby exclusive, you could get the Masterpiece Road Rage, you could even get the Kingdom Road Rage. The Bard of Darkmount is just really friggin' weird. So, in the original Shatterglass comic, you have Cliffjumper say that Optimus Prime reminded him of Straxus, which Sideswipe then said, "Oh, that's weird, because I love Straxus's poetry." In this universe, Shatterglass Straxus is a well-meaning, well-educated, and more importantly, well-balanced individual. He's not just sane, but he's able to give great advice and show immense empathy to others. And also, I'll just say it, I like his toy. It's kind of basic, it's just Darkmount now sporting yellow, but come on, it works. Okay, Straxus had a reason to exist. Octopunch did not. That was just them wanting to make an Octopunch, and because they couldn't make it look exactly like the original, they just said, screw it. That's Shattered Glass Octopunch. And the weirdest thing is that's also the only proper modern Octopunch that we have. The Junkions honestly make more sense to me. Wreckgar, Junkheap, and Scrap Iron are all just supposed to be insane Autobots that Ultra Magnus was able to manipulate into becoming his personal lackeys. And I like the purple on them. It works, it's decent, I can't complain. And then we get into one of the most underrated toys of the entire BotCon run, at least in my opinion. That being the customization class, Longarm. Now, you know how in animated, Longarm with Shockwave infiltrating the Autobots? Well, it's actually a very similar idea here. This Longarm had two heads, one being a purple Jazz that had a very familiar looking dot in the forehead, and then the second head was just Shockwave, and the overall thing was a reference to the alternator Shockwave. The reason why I think that this is a little bit more complicated than just that is because this isn't Shatterglass Shockwave. This is Marvel Shockwave that has fallen into the Shatterglass universe just like Cliffjumper, and so he's rebuilt his face to look like Jazz and has infiltrated the Autobots acting as a Longarm. I love that. I think it's cool. I hate that we've never actually seen it play out in a story, especially because this design is so sick. To bring a hit and miss year to a close, there was the Shattered Glass Drift. And this toy, as design, is incredible. I love it. The red, especially in the car mode, it's just gorgeous. In terms of character, though, this Drift it's just Deadpool. Believe it or not, because he's just a simple repainted Drift, there are some high price point Shatterglass Drifts out there. Like, for instance, the Kuro Karakuri, or the Furai Model Kit. Going into 2013, we would finally get a toy of Shatterglass Blaster. In Shatterglass, Blaster was a perfectionist, a maestro, someone who spoke with an exaggerated German accent and demanded absolute form to the letter in his music, which made him a fun contrast to Shatterglass Soundwave. His toy was just a repaint of the G1 Blaster mold, but it worked. And we would see it again in the Shattered Glass collection, though this time it was a repaint of the Kingdom Blaster. We would also get a whole lot of cassettes in this pack, like Ratbat, Ramhorn, and Rewind. Rewind would actually return with Shattered Glass Blaster a few years later. And there was also Slugfest, because, I don't know, someone out there remembers Slugfest. 2015 would give us just a really dumb one. In the Cybertron's Most Wanted pack, we got Stepper. The reason why that's weird is because we already had Stepper. Stepper is another name for Ricochet. And look at that, it's just the Reveal the Shield Jazz mold again. There was never any attempt to hide this. They just want to do another repaint of a very popular mold, and when they found out that they had already used a name, instead of trying to continue that character's story, they just said, there's two of them. They're twins. Why not? In 2016, we would see what was once one of the most engaging ideas ever put out by BotCon die with a whimper, alongside the convention itself, because the customization class that year would allow you to build up a Shatterglass Ratchet. There's many characters you could have done that day, including medics, but Shatterglass Ratchet is probably the most popular pick, and the toy's decent. It's a great character. Shatterglass Ratchet is one of the most unhinged versions of the characters ever. An incredibly friendly doctor that has absolutely no compassion, as compared to Ratchet, who is usually very gruff and mean, but always has your best interest at heart. It's interesting to see a gruff, nice guy be turned into a nice monster. But this toy just doesn't really capture that energy at all. Truth be told, I think the 2020 Shatterglass Ratchet using the Siege mold is far better. And it came with Optimus Prime, so hey, there's that. Something that I don't think anybody saw coming was the fact that Shatterglass Ratchet would be one of the first Shatterglass characters ever in blockies. Alongside that, there's actually some good options for a third-party Shatterglass Ratchet. You can get the Masterpiece scale from X-Transbots, and of course, New Age put out a truly beautiful version of a Legend scale Shatterglass Ratchet. Alright, so everything I've said so far, all the characters we've already covered, those are the characters that were put out by the original run of BotCon. We are nowhere near done. Because as I said before, many of these characters had repurposed toys. That also means that there are many characters out there whose only toy was a repurposed toy. So we're just going to go through them all now. The most important version of this has to be Jetfire. Even though he never played a major role in the first iteration of Shatterglass, he was essentially the main character of the first half of the IDW run, being presented as someone torn between two worlds, caught between his friendship with Starscream and his general apathy towards the Decepticon cause. becoming one of my favorite versions of Jetfire in the process. But his original design was based off the Gente Gente Dark Skyfire from 2010. It's not supposed to be a Shatterglass Jetfire. Takara Tomy just did a cool color scheme. Of course, Shatterglass Jetfire is a repurposed character no longer, as he had an official Shatterglass toy with the Shatterglass collection, a repaint of the Siege Commander class Jetfire. And just over the horizon, there's going to be the MPG Masterpiece Shatterglass Jetfire. In terms of third party, you have Iron Factory and New Age, usual suspects at this point. Very similar to Trax, Wheeljack is actually using another design as his Shatterglass design, that being Slicer. The first proper Shatterglass Wheeljack was actually in the Shatterglass collection, though it's made clear that Wheeljack just started calling himself Slicer by that point. Very much in keeping with that, you could have gone the 2010 BotCon Slice, and they actually made a joke about it in the comic where Slicer was tricked by Shatterglass Wheeljack by claiming that he was Slice from the future. Hey New Age, what's up? One of my honest-to-God holy grails is the Shatterglass Astro Train. Now this was not meant to be Shatterglass Astro Train, this was just supposed to be Astro Train using the Armada Jetfire mold, but it became Shatterglass Astro Train in the comics, which is also why the Autobots crash-landed on Earth. Astro Train and his team were able to down Rodimus and his ship. It is a great-looking toy, and there's actually a third-party option nowadays because Fans Hobby just made one. It's a bit of a floppy toy, but honestly, just in pure presentation alone, it is one of my favorite pieces in my entire collection. Alpha Trion is just using his BotCon toy, which is an amazing remold of Vector Prime from Cybertron, by the way. Again, I guess technically every Alpha Trion works because this is just a pretty normal Alpha Trion design, and there's also the fact that he's one of the 13 primes, and they're a universal singularity. I don't want to get into it, man. Any Alpha Trion works, I guess. This is just the official one. With Shatterglass Bludgeon, I need to say something. A lot of these characters have only one panel appearances or don't show up at all. They were just put in because why not? That is why I can say that the 2001 Robots in Disguise Bludgeon, it's technically a Shatterglass Bludgeon. I wish I could tell you more about his character, but there isn't more to his character. Do you remember that weird 2007 movie line Alita 1? The Energon RC that came in the brown and silver and looked a little bit like an unfinished prototype? That's Shatterglass RC! Again, there's not much to talk about character-wise. A whole lot of these were just retroactively called Shatterglass years later. It's a 3-for-1 special with Bombshell, Shrapnel, and Kickback. For them, you need to get the Insecticon clone army put out by E-Hobby. These red and black Insecticons were supposed to be army builders, but are now the main trio in the Shatterglass universe. Oh my god. Shatterglass Beachcomber actually has a character! It's not a particularly good character, but he does have a character! The whole thing with Shatterglass Beachcomber is that he's crazy! What do you mean he's crazy? I don't know, he just says random shit, why not? Cats in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon, and then he's gonna just say a few more references. I will say though, good choice for repurposing. They're using the 2007 movie Hardtop. Hardtop already looked a lot like Beachcomber. With these more muted colors, it kind of makes sense. An evil Beachcomber probably would try to rock the camo. Jesus Christ, scraping the bottom of the barrel with this one, New Age. Look at that! Big Daddy also has an actual character, and it's fucking horrifying. His whole personality basically boils down to boys will be boys. He is the coach that is fully on board with hazing the younger Autobots. And to get a toy of him, you just need to get the Transformers 2007 Big Daddy. And just like that, we're right back to the repurposings that don't actually have a character to go with. The Combiner Wars Blue Streak is also Shatterglass Blue Streak. He's never shown up anywhere, he's never done anything. Why is he Shatterglass? I don't know. Maybe someone got paid for every single repurposing they could come up with. I'm actually not going to knock Buzzsaw that much. To get him, you need to get the Linkin Park Soundwave, and use either Buzzsaw or Laserbeak because they're both identical, being nearly fully gold with the silver chrome weapons. And the reason why I think that's important is because the first time we see Soundwave, he's the music label body with this buzzsaw. Oh, look at that. It's yet another 2007 movie Cybertron mold repaint. The 2007 Strongarm became Brawn. Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah! Alita 1's in Shattered Glass. God damn it, of course she is. She's cool. And what's even more interesting, she's based off the Baroness from G.I. Joe. And the actual repurposing makes sense. It's Override GTS. Override GTS was already a darker repaint of Override. Taking that mold and turning it into this Alita 1, I'm more than okay with it. In fact, I think it's one of the more clever repurposings we've seen so far. Are you shitting me? Cyclonus' Armada is in Shattered Glass. And to get the Armada, you need to get the Gente Strafe. Good toy, but why? The Universe 2003 camshaft became Shattered Glass camshaft for some reason. At least this one actually showed up in a comic book. Okay, so Robot Masters Gigant Bomb and Smoke Sniper became the Shattered Glass, Darkwing, and Dreadwind. Why do I think that's kind of weird? Because Darkwing here was already Dreadwing. I don't know if this is clever or dumb or lazy. I don't even know anymore, dude. I'm so burnt out on this already. What's that? There's another Cybertron repaint in the 2007 movie line? Well, who can we turn Movie Warpath into? How about fucking Crosshairs? This is so dumb. This is so dumb. G2 Drench is also Shattered Glass Drench. Why even have Drench? We already have Shattered Glass Sideswipe, who is supposed to be inspired by Drench. Fast Track, who is more famous as being a partner to Scorponok, is the Micromaster partner to Astrotrain, and he is a repaint of Cometer, Jetfire's Minicon in Armada. Transformers 2010 Hubcap, which is also the best hubcap toy of all time, is also Shattered Glass Hubcap. Okay, so you know how Shattered Glass Ravage stole Glit's design? Well, Glit stole Halbach's design. Groove is a repurposing of the Cybertron Ransack GTS because they're both motorcycles, I guess. We already touched on this when we talked about Heatwave, but Shattered Glass Demolisher is the Powerlinks Armada Demolisher. So, in other words, get the red Demolisher, which honestly is still one of my favorite Armada toys, and boom, you have a Shattered Glass Tank Boy. Gut Cruncher got a toy. Gut Cruncher's in Shattered Glass now. Why is he in Shattered Glass? Because, god damn it, we had to do something with the 2007 Signal Flare. Okay, I'm not even mad at Shattered Glass Huffer. Yes, it's just another 2007 Cybertron repaint, but BotCon Huffer used the 2007 Armorhide mold. So, in a weird way, this is kind of clever when you take into account that BotCon was just turning it into another version of their Huffer. I'm okay with that. Okay, this is actually kind of funny. Do you remember how all the Predacons were Minicons? What if I told you that there is a Shattered Glass Predaking, and he's also a Minicon? He's a repurposing of the classics Night Scream. Do you remember 2007 Grindcore? I didn't, but apparently that's Shattered Glass Scoop because, I don't know, screw it, they can both scoop things. This one makes me sad. Shattered Glass Hotshot, even though he's not actually a character, is based off a very famous canceled toy. That being the Universe 2003 that would have given Armada Hotshot G1 Smokescreen's colors, and the toy looked amazing but never came out. So when I first saw that Scourge had a Shattered Glass toy, my first reaction was, where the hell was Scourge in Shattered Glass? The answer is, he's not in any of the comics, he's just mentioned in passing, and his toy is the BotCon Sweep. You know, that was a lazy one, but an actually kinda clever repurposing was the Henke Electro Disruptor Liger. Now this Mirage was just put out by Takara Tomy, it's using a very wild deco, but it does make Mirage look a lot more sinister. That makes sense as a repurposed toy, a lot more than turning a Sweep into Scourge does. And then we're right back to lazy. So Times Return Overboard, who was already a repaint of their version of Squeeze Play, is now just Shattered Glass Squeeze Play, cause fuck it, why not? Now this is kind of funky. Nightstick is usually Cyclonus' Target Master, but here Nightstick is a random Autobot, and it's a repurposing of an incredibly rare Armada Minicon that was only available in Japan. that being the Legends of the Microns Emergency Micron X Dimensions Prowl. The reason he's so cool is because this is a Minicon Target Master. I'm not even mad at that repurposing. I question why we made the decision, but at least it's making more people aware of a really cool and kind of obscure toy. Shatterglass Perceptor is just magnificus. So you can get the E-Hobby, you can get the Generations, you can get the Gen Selects, hell, you can even get an Aldi of this guy at this point. Shatterglass Sea Spray is just the 2007 movie Short Round, and Short Round wasn't even that redecoed from Cybertron Short Round. RID 2001 Sideburn inexplicably plays a pretty big role in Shatterglass, and his toy is a repurposing of the 2003 Sideburn. I've just figured out, you want to know what my problem is with all of this, with all of Shatterglass? It started off so cool and unique, but the more that you do this, the more you just keep doing the repurposings and mixing the aesthetics and not having a singular design philosophy or even that much of a cohesive plan, it feels like the spoiled kid at the birthday party who demands that they also get a gift for every gift the actual birthday kid is getting. It is just FunPub saying, mine, 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 with any random repaint that they could possibly get their grubby mitts on. It's lazy and boring, and I'm making this video, and I'm just having to constantly look at all of these toys, and I'm not even done. We still got more repurposings to go. But for some reason, Sideburn is the one that's breaking me. Shatterglass Skids is just Burnout, so you can get the Timelines, the Legacy, or the Masterpiece. All of them can just be Shatterglass Skids. You know what? No, I want you to guess. 2000 movie Skyblast. Who could this be? Who could this gray jet be? It's Starsaber. You know what? I'm actually okay with Shatterglass Superion. It's the Micromaster Combiner 6-Wing, but because the mold was made to look like Superion, it does work, and I enjoy that they're using Menasor colors. That's kind of clever. Tailgate is just Night Racer, so you can use the BotCon Night Racer or the Collectors Club Night Racer, but you see, that's a lie. They say that Tailgate's just Night Racer. Tell me, look at this picture. Does that look like Night Racer, or does that look like an incredibly different deco? And finally, there's a character that I'm adding to this list. Despite all the repurposings, the most obvious one they did was Ironhide. Ironhide is just using the Diaclone colors. Granted, no red face, but basically any Diaclone style Ironhide will work. So that brings that kind of obnoxious section of the video to an end. I don't hate the repurposing in Shatterglass. A lot of the repurposed toys made sense and were great. Again, my issue is just general laziness. There's so many times where it's clear that they just pulled a name based on very superficial similarities. It's a motorcycle, so it has to be Groove. It's a jet, so it has to be Starsaber. Or they would pull a random name just because, why not? Like Treadshot or Gut Cruncher. I don't mind that they got weird with it. In fact, my issue is that they played it way too safe so much of the time. And most of these characters only have an appearance, a cameo. Some of them have never appeared in fiction at all. And of course, we're still not done. There's actually a few characters that were only introduced to Shattered Glass through the Shattered Glass collection in the 2020s. For example, Flame War. Now, Flame War, kind of like a lot of the Shattered Glass designs of old, was kind of just snuck in. Sure, it's Shattered Glass, wink wink. Really, it was just an easy way to get Flame War out there, and it was using an IDW adjacent line. It was good brand synergy. That said, the second Shattered Glass toy line actually did introduce some major characters to the toy line, like wait a minute, Bumblebee. Oh, that's right. Goldbug never actually appeared as Bumblebee in the original Shattered Glass run, but he did show up as Bumblebee in the IDW Shattered Glass, where it's revealed he's just Bugbite. It's Bugbite. There are toys specifically named as Shattered Glass Bumblebee. There's the Blocky's Defender version and Aldi. However, the Aldi one in particular gives him the Bug Bite tattoos, meaning that any version of Bug Bite is also a Shatterglass Bumblebee. The E-Hobby Bug Bite, now Shatterglass Bumblebee. The Timelines Bug Bite, now a Shatterglass Bumblebee. The New Age Bug Bite, now a Shatterglass Bumblebee. Fuck it, the original GoBot Bug Bite. I guess that one is also a Shatterglass Bumblebee. Now here's the really insane thing. Despite everything we've talked about so far, all of the repurposings, there's actually some decently major Shatterglass characters that have never gotten an official toy. But our old friends New Age and Mastermind Creations have stepped forward to try to help us out. I have always enjoyed Shatterglass Shockwave's design, the yellow, gray, and blue. They make him look like safety colors, but that works for a nice guy Shockwave. And it helps that the New Age Shockwave is such an amazing toy to begin with. I like this guy a ton, and I'm glad to finally have a version of him in toy form. Of course, it goes a whole lot deeper than that. There's plenty of minor characters that New Age is also the only option for, like Shatterglass Inferno, done from their normal Inferno, Shatterglass Lockdown, done from their Trailbreaker, Swoop, Sludge, Slug, and Snarl, all done from their Dinobots, Shatterglass Hound, from their Hound, Shatterglass Warpath, from their Warpath, and Shatterglass Trailbreaker, again, from their Trailbreaker, just like Lockdown. We did it! We got all of them from the main continuity. As I said before, Shatterglass became more and more and more of a crutch as time went on for BotCon. That means that several other continuities got roped into this. Perhaps the most notable is Beast Wars, because we can actually make a decent lineup of repurposed toys. On the Maximal side, it's very boring. They never showed up anywhere, they just took odd repaints. For instance, Shatterglass Optimus Primal is just the purple repaint of Universe Optimus Primal. Same thing with Ratchet, it's just the Beast Wars Metals Rattle Special version. Funky repaints that are now evil Maximals. The Predacons, however, are much more interesting. They only appeared in this single panel, and yet you can actually recreate this. For Dinobots, just get the Universe Dinobot. For Scorponok, you need to get Sandstorm, so either the BotCon 1999 version or Legacy Sandstorm. For Tarantulas, that's the Fox Kids Tarantulas, one of the best repaints of all time. For Pterosaur, you need Beast Wars Laserbeak. And then finally for Waspinator, I know a lot of people think that he's Buzzsaw, but no, that's actually Timeline's Mudfighter. Again, you can make a decent Predacon lineup, except for the one I really want. You see, that Primal-inspired Megatron is actually beautiful, and it would work so well on a Megatron toy, but we've never had it. Okay, now we're done. Except there's a Shatterglass Beast Machines, and the only toy we know about it is Jetstorm. Okay, let's be fair. It's not so much that there's a Shatterglass Beast Machines as it is Jetstorm from Beast Machines has a Shatterglass counterpart that is in the Shatterglass universe, and it's just a Jetstorm toy. There's not anything deeper than that. And guess what? There's a Shatterglass Armada! There is, because Universe Perceptor is Shatterglass Perceptor. Which means that, of course, there's a Shatterglass Highwire and Grindor and Sure Shock. It's all just the Universe toys, mind you. Why is there a Shatterglass Perceptor? Because why not? Why not? There was a repaint available. Of course, that opens the door to something. There could be other Armada Shatterglass figures. And Fans Hobby has capitalized. There's a Shatterglass Armada Optimus, their naval commander, and it looks incredible, actually. My big issue with a lot of Shatterglass Optimus Primes is the fact that if you use the G1 design, he's too friendly. Armada Optimus is the most built for war Optimus has ever looked, so rocking the Shatterglass colors suits him. Mastermind Creations did Optus Pexus, their version of IDW Orion Pax, and one of the single best toys ever made by third party. And of course, it did become a Shatterglass Optimus. But whereas usually I would say that a Shatterglass Optimus just doesn't hit me the same way, they've given this Optimus so many more accessories in the original Optus Pexus, including an amazing cape with a wire so that you can pose it. Now, this took what was already a perfect toy and just gave it even more to play with. Granted, the Nemesis Prime repaint had all the same accessories, but I honestly prefer the shattered glass in this point. I think it looks cooler, and I love that they actually remolded the chest plate to give him the 3 bullet holes. Iron Factory took the War Within Optimus and combined it with Power Master Optimus? That's weird, but weird in a good way. And again, it looks good in these colors. APC Toys is doing a Prime Optimus Prime in the Shattered Glass colors, and it kind of rocks the deco. I've never thought about this, but Prime Optimus is a more intimidating version of the guy, so seeing it in these colors, it feels natural, actually. But now we open the floodgates. The Bumblebee movie was pretty good, and there were a lot of great toys of Bumblebee movie Optimus. So you better goddamn believe there's a lot of shattered glass versions in the third-party market. Magnificent Mecha turned their version of Optimus into Shattered Glass Optimus, but truth be told, I thought this was a statue the first time I saw it. It is so beautifully engineered. I was going to make a joke, but I don't want to knock a third-party company that is bringing some actual magic to the table. Speaking of magic, look at Lucky Cat's version of the SG Optimus. That's legend scale, dude! Legend scale with that much detail. But it's through the Bumblebee movie Shattered Glass Optimus that we go back to official waters, because you better believe that Hasbro were dipping their fingers in this pie too. There was the 3-0 Deluxe scale, which was 3-0's amazing non-transforming Optimus Prime, now given the Shattered Glass colors. Way Studios also did a statue, but I don't know, that seems way less impressive to me after seeing things that look just as good, if not better, but they can also move. And I want to leave this video on a high note. I know that there were points where I was getting annoyed with just how repetitive some of the releases were, but Shattered Glass is legitimately incredibly important to Transformers in the fandom. There's many people who are not Transformers fans, they're Shattered Glass fans. And I think that a beautiful love letter to Shattered Glass actually came from the 3-0 Deluxe Scale Shattered Glass Soundwave and Ravage. This is their Bumblebee movie designs, but it's also one of the most intricate and well-made versions of Shattered Glass Soundwave we'll ever get, complete with a wired bandana for posing. This toy is expensive, but it's also incredible and earnest. It would have been easy to do a cash grab repaint. They could have just put it in white and blue and said, that's it, that's a day. But instead, 3-0 went the extra mile and made a toy worthy of the legacy of not only Shattered Glass Soundwave, but Shattered Glass as a whole. And that, my friends, is it. Shattered Glass can be a slippery slope. It is important, and it is beloved. And throughout the video, I hope you know that when effort was put into Shattered Glass, I was receptive. I think all of the fans were receptive. But we also can't deny, Shattered Glass has something of a funk around it now. There's many people in the fandom that are burnt out on Shattered Glass and find it overplayed, boring even. And specifically, Shattered Glass Optimus has stolen the thunder from characters like Nemesis Prime, that arguably have still never gotten their proper due within the franchise. I think Shattered Glass, like so many things, is a well that was visited a bit too often. There's a saying that I love in pro wrestling, which is, how can I miss you if you won't go away? There's this idea that you should always leave the fans wanting more. Not in a bad way, you shouldn't make things unsatisfying, but there's a fine line between finally meeting expectations and then over-delivering to the point where everyone's bloated and burnt out on it. And I think Shattered Glass didn't just find that line, but far exceeded it several times. We didn't need so many repurposed figures. We didn't need so many cash grab repaints. There didn't have to be so many years of BotCon fully dedicated to continuing the story of Shattered Glass. I think in many ways, Beast Wars Uprising is much more what Shattered Glass should have been. So many of the designs in that book are also repaints and repurposes, but they weren't toys that were actually around. The designers were being clever and making repaints that weren't actually already existing. Things like the Uprising Grimlock and Dinobot are truly ingenious, and it felt more earnest because there wasn't a random niche repaint released only in Japan that you now had to track down. You could see that the fans were just wanting to say what toy would work for this character. Shatterglass could have been that, and in some ways Shatterglass was that. But eventually it became so much of a money-making machine for BotCon that they didn't care anymore. They wanted more, and more, and more, and more, and the issue with quantity is eventually you lose a lot of quality. Shatterglass was amazing in the beginning, and even at the end, Shatterglass had so many good ideas. Even though I poked fun at Nova Prime, it was a decently satisfying conclusion to not only the Shattered Glass universe, but also the Classics universe. I hate that so much of that goodwill and good work was put to waste by a management team that just didn't know when to stop, even when it was at the expense of their own product and their own creators. Shattered Glass isn't bad. In fact, it's good, solid, for some people even great. But just because it's great doesn't mean that it isn't in its own way a cautionary tale. There can be too much of a good thing, and Shattered Glass knows that lesson better than most. But guys, I'll ask you, which was your favorite Shattered Glass toy, and is there a Shattered Glass toy you're trying to track down right now? Truth be told, if you're trying to build up a Shattered Glass collection, maybe just start going with New Age. They're probably going to do all the major characters eventually. But on that note, guys, I also want to say thank you. I know that there were points in this video where I was getting a little bit agitated. Just know a lot of that was comedic. I was just trying to spice up the video because I felt it getting a bit repetitive. And I also want to say thank you for sticking around with me. We've had a good run, and hopefully we're just going to continue this great run. Shattered Glass was something that people have been asking for a very long time. As I said, it's still beloved. And I hope that this pretty decently long video will be a way to thank all of you for the time and the effort that you've put into requesting videos and watching videos and just being around. Thank you guys for sticking with me throughout all this. Alongside that, we are still trying to gather money for Lee in his battle with muscular dystrophy. If you are able to donate, please do. And moreover, if you donate, I will give you the rewards that you would have received had you backed me on Patreon. $1 will give you access to my Discord server Moonbase 1, $5 will allow you to watch videos early and download videos directly from me, and $10 will make you a producer. You'll show up in every video I make from now on, and you'll be able to make direct Patreon requests. Alongside that, I just want to say thank you to a very specific person. That being Max. Max was so excited for this video that they actually went and made their own mini toys of Shattered Glass Optimus Prime. Please go watch that video. In some ways, I think that they made it better than I ever could have. But, again, I want to thank everyone so much for watching. And hey, we'll see what we get up to next time.